Fertilizer markets are back on edge, caught between geopolitical headlines and some pretty wild price swings. From the Strait of Hormuz opening, closing, and reopening again, to urea prices dropping and rebounding just as quickly, the fallout from the conflict is still rippling through global supply chains. At the same time, India's latest tender has thrown another curveball into the mix. While potash is starting to sound a bit more bullish, though that story may not be as straightforward as it seems. I'm Johanna Botel, and joining me today to help us cut through the noise and make sense of it all is Josh Linville, VP of Fertilizer at StoneX. Welcome back, Josh.
Hey, welcome to week 9 of the Strait being closed. And I think we can just go ahead and discount the 48 hours I think the Strait was open. I think we can just go ahead and stay with the streak.
I genuinely, I can't keep up anymore. I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll be open by the time that we get off this conversation and then closed again before it goes to air. So let's talk about what did happen. So we've seen a lot of volatility in urea over the past few days. Like I said, prices dropped sharply on Thursday and Friday, and then they rebounded briefly after the Strait reopened and then closed again. So talk to me about those price swings, particularly though in NOLA.
Yeah, so this is something we didn't see globally. I think most of the globe was patient. It sat back and it waited to see. I think there's a lot of skepticism of what was happening late last week, but NOLA urea did not wait. We saw NOLA urea values fall,
Hmm.
plummet, I think is a better word for it,
Yeah.
almost 20% Thursday and Friday from the highs that were set on Tuesday. And it was a combination of factors. Now, number one, the thrill, the anticipation that the Strait was finally reopening. We finally saw, and it wasn't one-sided, right? This wasn't just the
Yeah.
U.S. making a statement,
Both made
one
the
country making it.
announcements.
Right. So both sides were saying there is a ceasefire in place. The Strait is open to traffic. You are safe to move.
Hmm.
That was one of the things we've been talking all this time about. If anything is going to cause this thing to drop, it's going to be the Strait reopening. So that caused a lot of bearishness out there in the marketplace. But that was also helped with India. So, we've been talking about this thing here for a little while, right? And we wondered how many tons will they get offered? How successful will they be? Blew through all expectations. So, like we talked about last week, I think they got well over 5 million ton offered.
Yeah.
They ended up locking, they wanted 2.5 million was their purchase goal.
Hmm.
They got commitments for up to 2.8 million ton. We'll talk about more of that I think in a second.
Yeah.
But ease at which they were able to get all these tons, that pair of factors just caused this market to just start shedding value as quick as humanly possible. And that's something we had been talking about. Whenever something major happens like that, the sellers who have been long for a long time, profitable for a long time, as soon as they see this thing getting a little toppy, getting a little bit of a curve to it, gone the way back down again, they're going to say, "Get me out of these positions.
Of course.
I am not going to ride this thing all the way to the bottom." And that's exactly what they did Thursday and Friday. Sell, 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 sell. And the buyers saw it. And what they're going to do what they do. They step back and they hit their number and they step back even further. They hit their number. And so, yeah, by the time we were all said and done, we went into the weekend, prices were down 20% from Tuesday. It was a massive, massive drop.
And how are they today or this, since Monday?
Well, yeah, the Strait's no longer open, is it? So now we're seeing markets starting to rebound, and we didn't see a whole lot of activity yesterday. I think yesterday, Mondays are typically slower anyway. Anyways, everybody's coming out of the weekend. Everybody's just kind of like, okay, let's kind of get our heads wrapped around it. But this was worse, right? Now all of a sudden we had the whipsaw last Thursday, Friday of, oh my gosh, the Strait is open. Let's crash prices. Then all of a sudden Monday is like, oh no, the Strait is closed. Oh, here we go again. It's exhaustion. I mean, to a certain extent, this market has been running on adrenaline for 9 weeks now. Everybody is tired. It's the middle of spring. Everybody's tired. Everybody's stressed out. And I think yesterday was just that. Let's take a breath. Let's see where it's at.
Mhm.
I'm expecting when we get done with this video and I get back out to the floor, I think I'm going to find out it's going to be a pretty active week.
Yeah, I believe so. Let's go back to talking about the urea tender that you briefly mentioned before. What are you making of the outcome that they got? And do you think that they'll actually follow through on those volumes?
It was amazing. So they wanted 2.5 million ton. And when all was said and done, when you looked at the East Coast, they wanted a million ton over there. And to hit a million ton, they didn't have to go past $10 over the lowest price offered. Again, with India, the way they do, like we discussed
Yeah.
last week, all offers have to drop down to that lowest price on each coast.
Hmm.
The prices were very, very narrow on the East Coast. We were like, okay, they shouldn't have much of a problem over there.
Yeah.
West Coast a little different. To hit the 1.5 million, they have to go all the way up to a $34 differential, $34 delta. Jonna, they did not have a single person say no. That is very irregular for these things.
Hmm.
What that tells the market is that everybody's sitting there saying, I am absolutely going to sell this price. I am not even going to think. I am not going to blink.
Right.
I will sell this all day long. And it really made everybody step back and be like, now, wait a minute. That doesn't feel right now, does it? That doesn't feel exactly bullish. And the thing that really scared me, I think this also had a little bit of why the prices fell on Thursday, Friday.
Hmm.
You had that combination where everybody said yes, and it was so easy to get to 2.8 million ton,
Right.
and the Strait was open. And those 2.8 million tons were not supposed to be tons coming from the Persian Gulf or the Middle East.
Hmm.
So there was a big fear, at least on my part, that they were going to scrap this tender. The prices were exceptionally
Of
high.
course, because
935 on, yeah, 935 on the West Coast, the 950, I think it was 956 on the East Coast. Horribly high price. And you got a bunch of tons offered. And the Strait is reopened. If I was India's government, I would have sat there and said, scrap this sucker. Don't buy a single ton. We're going to sit there and push it all back and say, try again.
yeah,
Come back to me with a better price. Come back to me with something more aggressive. I refuse to pay that price. You overstepped your bounds. We're going to try this again.
obviously you're dying to
I don't.
sell. I mean, that's basically
Right.
what it's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't think that's going to happen now. With the Strait closed once again, now we've moved back to the world supply of urea is tight. Now we're back to a situation of you got, your LNG shipments are not coming, so your domestic production is suffering. I think India's backed into a corner. It's like, I'm really upset about this. I'm not happy about this, but I know I need the tons because the public, the farmers see the government as the one being responsible for the tons being in place. They know they can't have that happen again. They've got to get these flows coming. So I do think they'll follow through with it. If you talked to me Thursday, Friday, or later day, Thursday, Friday, I would have told you I think there's a high chance they scrap this sucker and they try again next week.
Not anymore, though. We're back to the
Not,
unknown. What about potash? Is it finally having its moment, do you think? Or is this just freight costs just stealing the spotlight?
yeah. How often do we talk about this? How often is potash brought up in the subject? I mean, I can't tell you the last time we chatted about it. So potash values have been very, very steady. Again, that's something we've highly anticipated. We think
Hmm.
that global supply is very good versus demand.
Yep.
The price has been exceptional. I'll tell you what, if you are looking to blame anybody for the fertilizer things, don't go looking at the potash
No, they've
manufacturers.
been
Those
fine.
prices
Yeah.
have been exceptional. Yeah. So the issue is if I'm a potash manufacturer, I'm looking at price increases for phosphate and the price increases for nitrogen saying, I want a piece of that. But they've never been able to, the market has never really been willing to give them any sort of appreciation. They could have a very interesting way of trying to talk bullishness, though.
Hmm.
They're starting to talk about some of these prices around the world, say, well, these prices are up and potash market is showing some strength. And it's an interesting kind of play on words, a play on the marketplace. When we look at vessel freights now, these are freight rates that we get a lot of guidance from Arcus every week, looking at the Middle East price coming to NOLA for a urea vessel.
Hmm.
Normally, that freight rate is somewhere between $30-$35 a ton.
Okay.
This week, the average number was $100. The lowest was like $64. The highest was like 138 with everything going on with the world.
Yeah.
So it's basically tripled, right? So if you're talking about a global market that is having its price determined by a vessel delivered price,
Hmm.
well, you can absolutely sit there and say the market is strong, the market is bullish. These vessel delivered prices are absolutely higher.
Yeah.
We need to be more concerned with the FOB price, FOB at the plant,
Hmm.
because delivered probably has a lot of extra freight built into it that wasn't there before. So this is starting to be a little bit more of a talking point. You can kind of start to feel there's another kind of groundswell, another try and push this price higher as we start to get out of the spring season and start looking to the summer fills.
Right.
If it takes hold or not is going to be whether or not the market wants to believe it. We are still of the mindset that potash values should stay flat, mostly flat, right? You can still see
Hmm.
a little bit of variation just based on good supplies. But even with a little bit of a price increase, we've started to see, like from a NOLA perspective, which is not the greatest price point in the world, but it's what we have from a historical standpoint.
Yeah.
It is up probably about as much as what we've seen for the entire year price range. But bear in mind, that's only $10-15. So
Mm.
I think it's going to be really interesting. Something kind of keep an eye on. It's just not a subject we talk a lot about. So when something does happen, I think we need to keep tabs. I think there's a push coming for a price increase. We'll see how successful it is.
Josh, thank you so much for all your insight and also for keeping us up to date. I know it's hard because things change so quickly. And thank you to our viewers for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.